Multiple people, including Barbara Muschietti, said that the so multiple people, including Barbara Muschietti, have said so multiple people, including Barbara. Hey everyone, welcome to Why Are You Still Here? I'm Brandon, which you may or may not know by now, and today I'm here to talk about The Flash, which, if my shirt didn't already give it away, this will be a 100% spoiler-free review. I will have the spoiler-filled review up in a few days, and there's a couple things in here that are a little bit questionable. They're almost light spoilery, but if you've seen the trailers, I'm sure you already know about this stuff anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I'm not divulging major plot points here or anything like that. But let's get started, shall we? For those that don't know, this movie is directed by Andy Muschietti, director of Mama, It, Chapter 1, Chapter 2. So a general synopsis of this movie is that Barry Allen, the Flash, finds out through a series of events that he can actually go back in time a little bit. And he thinks maybe he can push it further. And if you know anything about the character of Barry Allen, you know that his mother died when he was very young. In the comic books, it's by the hand of Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash. And in the movie, you'll see if that still holds true. I don't want to spoil that, right? So he decides, against the advice of Bruce, to actually go back further in time and stop the death of his mother ever happening. And because of that, it screws up everything. You know, it's a world where metahumans don't exist, or it doesn't seem like they exist, at least. And this just becomes a whole big deal. It's very similar to like the Flashpoint storyline, with some things changed about it. And firstly, before I get into anything else, let me say everybody in the cast was great. From Ezra Miller to Michael Keaton to Sasha Kaye, even though she was very much so underutilized, Kiersey Clemens, Ben Affleck, they were all wonderful. And for me, it might sound crazy, but Ben Affleck, this guy right here, this is a terrible figure. But you know, look at that face. At least it's better than the McFarlane ones. The McFarlane ones, he looks like Ron Perlman. Tell me about it. But yeah, so he stole the show for me. He's at the beginning of the movie, and his scene is so quintessential Batman, right? It doesn't really rival the warehouse scene from Batman v Superman, but it comes close. And I just sat there that entire time with this big stupid grin on my face. Like, I could feel it. I was like,
happy, 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 happy. I'm so happy today.
and actually, in the first few moments of him being on screen, I got chills. And I won't divulge exactly what happens. You've seen snippets of it in the trailer and whatnot, but it is very, very cool. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this movie being incredibly goofy, and some people have even called it a comedy, and that it's not an action movie whatsoever. Now, I fervently disagree with that. And I will say there is a lot of goofiness in it. There's a lot of jokes. If you are not into that kind of thing, it does play with that line quite a bit. But it isn't anything that takes away from the movie, at least in my opinion. There is a lot of emotion in this movie, more than I could have even anticipated. I had no idea I was going to be so invested in this story of Barry's parents as I was. And I must say that Maribel Verdú and Ron Livingston knocked it out of the park. I was a little apprehensive with the replacement of Billy Crudup, but it ended up working out. There was just so much heart in both of their performances, and I just really felt it. And on top of it being emotional, there is tons of serious moments as well. There has been a lot of talk of Andy Muschietti not lingering on those serious or emotional scenes enough and cutting to a joke too quickly, but I can't think of any specific point in the movie that really stuck out to me. I'm sure there's a couple times, but for the most part, the movie is good enough to make up for those failings.
It's good. It's good.
So the next two things coming up are those uh slight spoilery moments that I did reference, and again, they're nothing big. But if you want to tune out on any type of spoilers, then you can cover up your ears, and I'll do this with my hands, okay? When spoilers are over. Just tiny, really tiny things, trust me. And one of them is that if you were worried about whether or not this movie was going to be canon with Zack Snyder's Justice League, it is. It is, which is fantastic because ever since Andy Muschietti took over as director, he has been claiming that he's a big fan of Zack Snyder, and it's good to see that that wasn't just for the press, like some people are doing, right? And he really did. It's not like it doesn't beat you over the head with it, and I won't say specifically what happens that shows you this is the case, but it is. And the other one is that the other Barry, which again, if you have seen any trailers for this movie, you know about it. And I mean, Ezra Miller plays two parts through the bulk of this movie. There's the normal Barry Allen that we know, and then there's the Barry Allen that grew up with a mom who has kind of had like a privileged life. And that other Barry, not only do a lot of the silly moments come from him and not our main Barry. Side note, I thought that was a good choice, but it gives us sort of a glimpse into what our Barry Allen went through during his origins, right? So we don't know a whole lot about that other than just like the little snippet from Batman v Superman where he's in the convenience store, or a couple moments in this movie where they show flashbacks. Other than that, we don't really know anything about his origins and the night that he got struck by lightning and all that kind of stuff, and how the moments following that massive event were for him, how crazy it was. And we actually get to see that in this movie. And I thought that was a really cool way to sort of have an origin movie without actually having an origin movie, if that makes sense. So, spoilers over. And the pacing of this movie is actually quite good. It is 2.5 hours roughly, and it really doesn't feel like it. It feels like a much quicker movie. However, there is a noticeable slowdown about 2/3 in, and I started to feel it. And because the movie's very fast paced, but then it really slows down in the last act. So it definitely struggles with some pacing issues. There's a lot of Batman during the day in this movie, which you've seen the scenes that I am referring to in the trailer, and I'm a little conflicted about that. Traditionally, when we see Batman, it's during the night, and it's almost exclusively during the day in this movie. And on one hand, I'm like, this isn't right. I don't like this. But on the other hand, I'm like, but it's kind of cool because we've never seen this before, right? And again, it's just a nitpicky thing on my end that I'm just sort of like unsure of how to feel about that. Now, when Barry enters into the Speed Force, I'm sure you've heard this from other people besides me as well. the different universes you get a glimpse of, and some parts of this universe you get a glimpse of, like certain things that he has experienced in his past or he might experience in his future, as well as different universes. Now, I'm not going to say any specifics about that other than the choice to make them super cartoony looking is confusing for me. I mean, supposedly Andy Muschietti said that it was an actual artistic choice to go that way, but I think it might be the wrong choice, unfortunately, because most people are reading it as really bad CGI. And this movie is getting slammed for, poor quality CGI. And I can safely say most of the CGI in this movie is great. It's on par with any other movie from 2022 or 2023 or whatever. They might have been rushed a little bit, but they did a good job within the time frame that they had. And maybe there just wasn't enough time to actually make the different universes look real, but it looks so off. Like, it looks like some people have gone as far to say PS2 game. It looks like a PS4 game, and it becomes a little bit jarring. I will admit that. The cameos that occur in those scenes as well, I think they were fine. Some people were complaining about it, digital necromancy and all this crap. Come on. It's a movie. To quote Christopher Nelson, shut up and eat your popcorn, right? And I'm not trying to, like step on anybody's beliefs. If you actually feel offended by these cameos, that's on you. I have no say in that. But for me, it was all fine. And the CGI outside of the Speed Force, like I said, it's good.
It's good.
So multiple people, including Barbara Muschietti, have said that the post-credit scene of this movie is going to get everybody excited, right? And just to let you know, there's only one post-credit scene. There's stuff that happens during the end credits, more so just like fun stuff, but only one actual post-credit scene. And it's okay. It's funny, but there's nothing in it that's going to make anybody particularly excited. It's just strange to me. Was there another one maybe that Warner Brothers made them take out? Maybe James Gunn made them take out? I don't know. And speaking of James Gunn, there's some obvious changes made in this movie. I can't get into specifics about it until I do my spoiler review, but there were changes made in this movie after it was already completed. And you just know that these changes were done by James Gunn to fit into his new DCU. And I'm less conflicted about that decision. I think that is a bad decision. They should have let Andy Muschietti do what he was going to do and just let it be. Like, for instance, taking out the Henry Cavill cameo that has so famously hit the news that James Gunn personally had that removed from the movie. And the only reason given was that he didn't want to set audience expectations for seeing him as Superman again. Okay. Nobody thinks that. We all know that he's been fired and he's not coming back. So seeing a cameo that he shot is not going to be, detrimental to our experience watching the movie. If that didn't happen with Black Adam, where as far as we knew at that time, he was coming back, then it's not going to do it for this movie. So I guess at the end of the day, there's only one last thing for me to do, and that is give a rating for this movie. I believe I have touched on everything that I can touch on. And I would say it's a really great movie. It's an awful lot of fun. There's some amazing acting, amazing writing, but it's not perfect. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10 for two main things: pacing issues and a little bit too much goofiness. Like I said, it rides that line of being not enough and too much, but it doesn't go overboard with it. Because sometimes you get like laugh fatigue. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but seeing like a Lego movie or like Thor, Love and Thunder, Deadpool 2, that kind of thing. Deadpool 2 wasn't so bad with it, but every line nearly is a joke. So you're laughing, but then your like jaw starts to hurt and you're like, I'm just sick of laughing. I'm exhausted. And that sounds maybe so stupid, but you know what I mean. Like if you've experienced before, you know what I mean. And this movie does not have that. So I really have to give it that. It just could have been maybe a little bit more serious, but that's really it. And 7.5 out of 10 is a pretty good score, I think. And yeah, but that's just my opinion. And who knows? It might go up to 8 out of 10 tomorrow. We'll see, because that's when I'm recording my spoiler review. So we'll see if it changes at all. But thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that I missed? Anything big that's a non-spoiler that I missed? Comment below, let me know about that. And yeah, let's start a conversation. And have you seen it? If you have, what did you think about it? And if you haven't seen it yet, are you excited? I know I was. All right. Bye, everybody.